Schlittler. Now that I have your attention, I'd like to talk about Cam Schlittler. Cam Schlittler, a right-handed pitching prospect in the Yankees organization, is the perfect type of player I like to look at in this series that's called Statline Scouting. I've done it for the last few years, various episodes throughout the years, but it's a series where I try to unearth hidden gems in the minor leagues. Guys having great minor league performances, statistically speaking. They might not be top 100 prospects, might not be, prospect household names, but we're hoping that their minor league success will correlate with major league success someday. In the case of Cam Schlittler, by the time you're watching this, he's maybe already made his big league debut. I'm recording this on Tuesday. He will debut on Wednesday, make his first start in the big leagues for the Yankees. Again, he is a right-handed pitching prospect, and what's very Statline Scouty about him, what's very sort of hidden gem about him, is the fact that he was a 7th-round draft pick in the 2022 draft out of Northeastern, signing bonus $200,000, 220th overall pick, and yet knocking on the door to the big leagues, about to make his big league debut. In 2024, here's what I like: 120 innings pitched, right? This guy is stretched out. That's a lot of innings for a minor league pitcher to throw in a year. This means that he is, currently, someone who could, take the mound every 6 or so days, like what is asked of the big leaguers at the big league level. In 2025, what I really like is just sort of the consistency, having another really good season. Had a 3.36 ERA in the minors last year between high A, double A, triple A. This year in the upper levels, double A and triple A, a 2.82 combined ERA in 76 innings, 14 starts. The main thing here is the strikeout rate minus walk rate, K percentage minus BB percentage. This is a stat that has a pretty steady correlation with major league success, has a pretty steady correlation with run prevention. It's a very important stat, and he has absolutely succeeded in that regard. You can see 30% strikeout rate to 8% walk rate leads to 22% K percentage minus BB percentage at the double A level, and then in triple A, once he gets promotion, even better, 36% strikeout rate, 9% walk rate, 26.5% K minus BB percentage. That's great. If he can continue to do that at the big league level, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in the league. Chances are there will be some regression in that regard, right? The current projection systems have a more like 20% strikeout rate, 9% walk rate, but that is doable. You could be good while doing that. So Cam Schlittler, a 2022 7th rounder, about to make his big league debut, probably already has made his big league debut by the time you watch this. If you threw a 27 strikeout perfect game, then, I look awesome, I look smart. If he was terrible, then I look stupid, but I don't care. I like Cam Schlittler. Normally at Statline Scouting, we just look at the stats. I am going to cheat a little bit and look at some of that AAA pitching data. This isn't available for all of the minor leagues, but it is available for AAA as well as some of high A. This is courtesy of TJ Stats, Thomas Nestico. He has put together this chart that shows his stuff, and essentially what stands out to me is that everything is just sort of cutting to the glove side. His fastball has a lot of cuts. Some of these have, glove side movement rather than arm side movement from the four-seamer. And then everything else, just, slider, sweeper, curveball, everything moves glove side with him. I'm curious to see how that kind of repertoire will work at the big league level, because you can just see there's not a lot moving over here to the arm side, not a lot moving, in these sort of quadrants right here. So that's one thing to look forward to in terms of Cam Schlittler as he makes his big league debut with the Yankees. I like to better contextualize where this player ranks in the prospect world by looking at the MLB Pipeline rankings. These are the rankings for the New York Yankees organization only. These lists update throughout the year. I don't love MLB Pipeline. I don't love necessarily that this is the state-run media, telling you what to think about these prospects. I find that's a weird conflict of interest sometimes, but it is public-facing, it is free, it is not paywalled, and it is a semi-updated list. Cam Schlittler currently ranks as the 10th best Yankees prospect. There are a few pitchers ahead of him, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitchers ahead of him. So the number 7 Yankees pitching prospect according to MLB Pipeline, but you know what? Number 1 in our hearts. Now we're on to the Fangraphs minor league leaderboards to find the next player to Statline Scout. We are using the filters available on there. I love the filters. This is why it's sort of the main tool I use in Statline Scouting. We're looking at AAA hitters who pull the ball at least 45% of the time, hit a fly ball at least 40% of the time. If you want to hit homers at the big league level, you're going to have to learn to pull a fly ball consistently, unless you just have insane raw power. Not everyone has that. So for everyone else, you need to learn to pull those fly balls. AAA is a weird level. We see a lot of old guys here. We see a lot of guys who, have big league service time. It's a level that a lot of teams will actually have their top prospects skip or at least not spend that much time at compared to AA. So it's a very sort of an odd level, an odd hodgepodge of like 40-man guys. No one's really happy to be in AAA. I'll put it that way. No one's happy to be in AAA. A lot of these guys have tasted the big leagues at one point or another and would like to make their way back soon. There is an exception to that as we looked at some of the younger players at that level. Jakob Marsee, an outfielder in the Miami Marlins organization. He is pulling that fly ball at the age of 24 and at the AAA level, and that is something I think is going to correlate to some success at the big league level if he can continue to do it. Out of that group, he's also hitting pretty well. He's 7th out of the 21 hitters who are pulling those fly balls in terms of WRC plus with a 122. Let's talk about Jakob Marsee. So here is Jakob Marsee, a 24-year-old left-handed hitting outfielder in the Marlins organization, although seen here pictured in San Diego Padres garb, and I'm not talking about the brown robes. Traded from San Diego May 2024. We'll talk about that trade in a little bit, but if you recall, you might be able to already know what player he was traded for. Central Michigan product, 2022 6th rounder, so similar draft status overall to Cam Schlittler. And here he is at the AAA level, not just demonstrating a good sort of batted ball profile, right? Being able to consistently pull that fly ball in the air. That is a good thing to be able to do for sure. But also stealing bases. He has stolen 39 bases in 81 games after having stolen 51 in 137 games in the minor league level in 2024. So this is very impressive stuff. He is someone who can steal bases and also pull the fly ball. These are two good skills to have heading into the big league level. The prospect TLDR here is interesting. This is from Eric Longenhagen from Fangraphs. Purely from an eyeball scouting standpoint, Marsee looks like he'll peak as a 4th outfielder. His statistical case is much stronger than that. I think that's sort of the perfect example of someone we want to look at in terms of Statline scouting. Maybe the eyeball scouting doesn't, necessarily see an everyday big league player, but statistically speaking, he has a strong case. We did see that Marsee was traded from the Padres organization to the Marlins organization in May 2024. That was, of course, part of the Luis Arraez deal, in which the Marlins received 5 prospects for him. So that was pretty interesting. Marsee, merely one of those. So it's not like the entire, legacy of this Luis Arraez trade is going to ride on him necessarily, but he is looking, at least at the AAA level, like someone who could be a big league contributor, hopefully sooner rather than later. Here are the top 30 Miami Marlins prospects according to MLB Pipeline. They are headlined by Thomas White, who is one of the best pitching prospects in the game right now. Starlin Caba, who is traded for Jesus Luzardo, sort of a glove-first shortstop. Joe Mack, the catcher, looks like he's going to be an awesome player for them in the big leagues, hopefully sooner rather than later. And then at 22, we had to scroll a little bit of a ways, but 22, we do see Jakob Marsee make the list. These prospect stocks are trending up, and just like I'm looking at data to decide which of these prospects I like, moomoo, the sponsor of today's video, is the trading platform to find the stocks you like. With free access to premium tools from Morningstar research tools that are normally $34.95 per month, but free to funded moomoo users. Once you've funded your account with a deposit, feel free to enjoy an 8.1% APY for the first 3 months on your uninvested cash. Qualifying deposits already net you up to 60 free stocks, so take your time with the research tools and get a feel for moomoo's powerful platform. Of course, the highlight here for baseball fans is moomoo's partnership with the New York Mets, where a $5,000 deposit nets you 2 sweet tickets to a Mets home game. I've already enjoyed such luxuries, and I know for a fact some of you have already taken moomoo up on that offer for Mets suite tickets. To follow suit, click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to experience the power of moomoo. That was the AAA level. The AAA level can be a little weird. There's sort of post-hype guys there sometimes. At the AA level, now you start to get a mix of like top prospects and then sort of underrated guys. What we're looking at here is the pitching leaderboards on Fangraphs, and we have picked a completely arbitrary 14% swinging strike rate. So we like guys who miss bats, but you know what we also like from a pitcher? Guys who get ground balls. So how about combination? At least 14% swinging strike rate, 50% ground ball rate. Here are the list of guys who have done that with at least 20 innings pitched at the minor league level, specifically AA, and you see some names. You see 15 names You see Jonah Tong and Nolan McLean, who are sort of, big name pitching prospects for the Mets. You see Ronan Kopp, an OTP legend. You see Coleman Crow, a Statline scouting alum. You see Eduarniel Nunez of the Padres, who has already made his big league debut. But the oldest guy on this list by far is a 29-year-old by the name of Andrew Bechtold in the Philadelphia Phillies organization. And as I clicked on him and as I learned about him, I said, oh yeah, this is exactly the type of guy I want to Statline scout. Because Andrew Bechtold, who was drafted in 2017 fifth round out of Chipola, which if you don't know about Chipola, that is a JUCO in Florida that has a very rich history of producing, big leaguers. It's just one of those places. Drafted by the Twins as a third baseman. As you can see, he climbed his way up the minor league ladder. In 2023, in 73 games at the AAA level for Minnesota, he had a 799 OPS. Admittedly, the ball was kind of flying that year. That was only a 94 WRC+, but he was getting close to the big leagues, right? In AAA, and then he switches to pitching. 2023, he starts to make his first pitching appearances, at least consistently, and he appears in 20 games for Minnesota, and then he just goes full-time pitching. 2024, he was pitching in the Blue Jays organization. Didn't do that great, but this year, though, in AA for the Phillies, at the age of 29, not only does he get another, chance at affiliated ball, he's also doing some things well. He's missing some of those bats, a 26% strikeout rate. The walk rate is high. The walk rate is a bit high. I'm not saying this guy is going to be a future big leaguer as a reliever or anything like that, but it's a very interesting story of a guy who got pretty close to making the big leagues already and then switches to pitching, and there he is, still in AA at the age of 29 with a 3.76 ERA. At the very least, this is certainly someone that we want to root on. Here are the top 30 Philadelphia Phillies prospects according to MLB Pipeline. As you can imagine, as we scroll down this list, Andrew Bechtold is nowhere to be found. And I honestly wonder, if MLB Pipeline had to rank every single player, on a Phillies affiliate roster, where would Andrew Bechtold rank? This would be sort of like an infinite scroll situation. I mean, a 29-year-old reliever in AA who's not even necessarily tearing it up, but you know what? He does some interesting things. He misses bats. He gets ground balls. We are certainly going to be cheering him on because what if, right? It would be a pretty amazing story. So that was the fun two-way story of Andrew Bechtold. Now we're going to use the Fangraphs minor league leaderboards to find a AA hitter. And we're going to use swinging strike rate again, but this time sort of in the inverse. We want a swinging strike rate below 10%. I don't like guys who swing and miss, right? If you swing and miss a little bit in the minors, that might turn into swinging and missing a lot in the majors. So statistically, we want good contact skills. And then we're going to look for isolated power. This is simply your slugging percentage minus your batting average, but this is isolated power above 200. So we want to be able to hit for power, but we don't want to have to pay for it in terms of giving up contact. These are the 10 hitters at the AA level who have done it. The youngest in that group include Milwaukee Brewers prospect Luke Adams, who is playing for the Biloxi Shuckers. He's also hitting very well with a 171 WRC+, keeping paces with Brock Wilken, another fellow Biloxi Shucker, who is a couple years older. So Luke Adams, the 21-year-old corner infield prospect from Milwaukee, was a 2022 12th round draft pick out of high school, Hinsdale Central High School. Shout out Hinsdale Central High School. When I look at Luke Adams and his statistical profile, I see sort of all the shortcomings of Statline scouting as a concept, right? All the things that could go wrong, all the warning signs, all the red flags of, yes, this guy is hitting very well at the AA level, but can he do it at the big league level? And here's what I mean by that. Look at his batting average. It's 241, right? He's very reliant on walking. He has a 422 on base percentage versus that 241 batting average. He has 11 homers in 59 games. That's great. But the question is he aggressive enough at the plate, or is he simply just taking sort of statistical advantage of what are, in essence, less commandy, less control-y pitchers at the AA level that won't be there at the big league level where guys can really hit their spots and throw strikes? Because if that's the case, and we look here at sort of the plate discipline metric here, his swing rate, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but his swing rate listed at the AA level is 33%. That is extremely low. That is not a lot of swinging. That is sort of a bat-on-shoulder guy, and I feel like bat-on-shoulder guys in the minor league levels can really succeed, and sometimes they get to the big league level and they get exposed. Right now with a 241 average at the AA level, you know, Steamer projects him to have a batting average below 200 at the big league level, in which case that's most likely unplayable unless you're going to homer, you know, every 10 or 12 or 15 plate appearances or whatever. So, you know, he's doing great. I don't want to sound like I'm bagging on the kid. You know, he's taking a very smart approach for his level, but the question is, can we add swings? Can we add aggression? Because at some point they're going to throw you strikes, Luke, and we need to see you know, still making contact at a high rate and still hitting home runs at a high rate to compensate for that. Another thing I like, you know, 30 steals 2 years ago, 28 steals last year, 10 steals already this year. So he's showing, you know, at least some ability on the base pass as well, in addition to what is good power and good plate discipline, at least at the AA level. Here is the MLB Pipeline Top 30 for the Milwaukee Brewers, headlined by Jesus Mate, who is just a very special prospect. A long way to go, obviously, but statistically speaking, he's very impressive, very advanced for his age. And if we scroll down here, not too far, but we do get to Luke Adams. And I do want to point out the MLB Pipeline write-up for him right there. First thing they say is that the aggression will have to come, and I agree with that. But one thing that they point out that I should have noticed, because his walk rate, while high in the minors, does not necessarily explain such a gap between his batting average and on-base percentage. And the thing that fills in that gap is the hit by pitches. He was hit by 40 pitches in 2024. He's still getting hit by pitches at a very high rate in 2025. So that's another tool in the arsenal that he's using to get on base. I don't know how consistent he'll be with that at the big league level. Again, the guys are just, you know, they're better at throwing, right? They're better at hitting their spot. He's still going to get hit by pitchers probably at an above average rate, but we'll just have to see whether that is truly another weapon he can use to get on base. We're going further down the minor league ladder. This is the high A level. We're looking at hitters age 21 or younger. So these guys are on average about a couple years younger than the competition they're facing off against. So to perform statistically at this level at that age is very impressive. And as we sort by WRC+, we see a lot of impressive names. Let's look at the trio of Tigers here. McGonigal, Briseño, Max Clark, all top 100 prospects, all moving up to AA now at the same time. So that's very exciting for them. Tigers in a good place organizationally. We're talking about someone who's sort of sandwiched in between all these Tigers. This is Khadim Diaw of the Minnesota Twins. Khadim Diaw is 21 years old. He will turn 22 next month, and he is listed as catcher/outfielder. And whenever I see these two combinations in tandem, I just think athlete. You know, I think Dylan Dingler, I think Cooper Hummel, I think Dalton Varsho. I just think athlete. I just think athletic guy. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just what I think when I think catcher/outfielder. Anyways, he was a 2024 third rounder, so drafted last year out of college Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles. And the interesting thing about the name here, Khadim Diaw, he is of Senegalese descent. And if he makes the big leagues, I believe he'll be the first big leaguer of Senegalese descent. So that is pretty cool. That is a celebration of the game, you know, growing more global. He was born in the United States, but he is of Senegalese descent. His name is Khadim Diaw, and he has performed very well statistically at the high A level. As you can see, made his pro debut last year after he was drafted, played 24 games at A level, was pretty good, but this year, better. 302 average, 455 on base, 431 slug, adds up to a 155 WRC+, keeping the strikeout rate low, respectable 17% versus a 12% walk rate. So I'm excited for him. I'm excited for the concept of Senegalese baseball, right? So I think that's a pretty cool story. Another thing I will say the Minnesota Twins are taking advantage of here with Khadim Diaw is draft age. You know, you have to be, if you're drafted out of college, you have to be a junior, essentially. You have to have played 3 years in college, so you could be like, you know, a redshirt sophomore or something like that, for example, but you need 3 years. And when he was drafted last summer, he was still 20, so he was a young college draftee, right? Relative to his peers there, you know, you see a lot of, 21-year-olds, even 22-year-olds getting drafted. He was 20, and I think having just that extra year to develop makes a big difference because he's the age of some of these college juniors that are going to come out of the draft in 2025, and here he is already, excelling at the high A level. So that's good on the Minnesota Twins taking advantage of sort of the subtleties in age difference, even within the same sort of class of player. Here's a look at MLB Pipeline's top 30 list for the Twins. A system of intrigue. A lot of names here that you look at and you just say, That's kind of what this system is right now. I'm not going to say it's necessarily one of the best, but there's a lot of, What if? And I think Khadim Diaw here at 29, a recent addition to the list, is a good example. Also, you know what? Shoutouts Peyton Neals at 22. So this next pitcher we're going to talk about is in High A, but that is a recent promotion. So we're going to look at his numbers in A-ball first and foremost. Looking just here at young pitchers in A-ball, age 21 or younger, and we're sorting by swinging strike rate. The reason we're doing a lot of like swinging strike rate and not strikeout rate, for example, is that I think it's probably more predictive of future strikeout rate than actual current strikeout rate across a smallish sample and across the fact that these guys are playing, in lower levels of the minor leagues to begin with. That's why I'm looking at swinging strike rate rather than just pure strikeout rate. If you want an analog for how to talk about swinging strike rate, one thing you can do, look at these guys that have a 15% swinging strike rate, multiply that number by 2, then add 1. What's being implied here is a 31% strikeout rate with a 15% swinging strike rate. We look at this list, we see 21-year-olds, we see 20-year-olds. There's one 19-year-old here, and it's Wei-En of the Oakland Athletics. I say Oakland because they're still listed as Oakland on the Fangraphs minor league leaderboards, and you know what? Good for them. Good for them. Wei-En was signed by the Athletics last June out of Taiwan. His signing bonus was north of $1 million, making him one of the more expensive Taiwanese signings in recent memory, and so far he has certainly lived up to that price tag. This is why it's important to sometimes look at sort of the peripheral stats versus, just pure ERA. His ERA was 3.96 in A-ball this year. That is good. Don't get me wrong, but we're looking at a 3 FIP and a 2.69 xFIP, and that is powered by the fact that in A-ball, at the age of 19, across 50 innings, he struck out 34% of the batters he faced while only walking 3% of them. That is a phenomenal ratio. That is really special, statistically speaking. And of course, that earns him the promotion to High A, where he has 2 appearances so far and has only thrown 5 innings. So not a lot to glean here statistically from his performance at High A. The promotion here is the story. The promotion, the fact that there is a 19-year-old pitching at High A at all is very impressive. Here is the Athletics top 30 prospect list according to Pipeline. I was a little surprised when I saw that Wei-En was listed at 30, but then again, around midseason, sometime soon, they will sort of do a re-ranking of some of these guys, and I imagine he will move up this list considerably. What kind of ends up happening is that they wait around for a prospect to graduate. Let's say, for example, it was Nick Kurtz who graduated from the athletic system. Well, then you have a new spot open up at 30, and you fill him in with the best prospect not on the list. In this case, it was Wei-En. And again, the quoted figure on that signing bonus via Pipeline, $1.13 million last June. If I can put that into MLB draft slot equivalent speak, early 3rd round, maybe late 2nd round. Also, you can see a few other Taiwanese pitchers on this top 30 prospect list for the Athletics, so that has been a pipeline for them for sure. Promotions are good. Moving up the minor league ladder is good. Teams are using their own internal data to determine when a player is ready to move up. And any sort of promotion is good. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So we look for the promotions. And so we're looking at players' complex league stats, although they have currently been moved up to full season A-ball. So complex league, this is stateside rookie ball. This is the lowest level of minor league baseball that is played stateside. The only thing below it is the Dominican League, which tends to have players that are a little bit younger, a little bit less advanced. So I looked at players here. We're keeping that swinging strike rate low, below 10%. And I also just, at this point, I'm looking for just homers and steals, right? Show me that you're athletic. At a certain point, merely hitting the ball over the fence is hard to do when you're a teenager. Not everyone has developed the ability to do that with any consistency, so to have 5 homers, 5 steals in what is ultimately a truncated season is impressive. And the only hitter with a swinging strike rate below 10% and at least 5 homers and 5 steals at the complex level is Devin Fitz-Gerald of the Texas Rangers, who walked more than he struck out, had a 965 OPS 147 WRC plus at the complex level. Fitz-Gerald, a switch-hitting infielder, was drafted in the 5th round last year's draft out of Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. This is a high school that sadly was in the news for some awful reasons a few years ago, but also has produced a lot of big league talent. Roman Anthony Rizzo, among others, so Devin Fitz-Gerald following in their footsteps. I love the name Devin Fitz-Gerald, and I love just the spelling and the styling of the name here. The Fitz, and then the dash, and then the capital G, Gerald. That is going to look so good on the back of a baseball jersey one day, on the back of a Texas Rangers jersey. Fitz-Gerald. That is so cool. He's already like an 80 on the cool scale just because he could have gone regular Fitz-Gerald, but he didn't. And as you can see, the promotion has occurred, and he's continued to hit all right throughout his promotion. He does have a 133 WRC plus, although that is very, walk rate driven, very on base driven. We'll see if that holds, but his performance at the complex level was very, very good at age 19. Again, a 965 OPS, 6 homers, 5 steals in 31 games. That earned him the promotion, and the promotion is what we're keeping an eye on. Here are Pipeline's top 30 Texas Rangers prospects. Number 1 is Sebastian Walcott, who is part of what I think appears to be a potential shortstop golden generation brewing. I know you could look at prospect lists from any year and see a lot of shortstops, and a lot of guys end up moving up shortstop, but I think there's just a lot of really good shortstop prospects right now, age 18, 19, 20, 21. Hopefully they'll all come up around the same time and really just establish sort of a new generation of shortstops, similar to the ones that we saw kind of emerge in the mid-2010s, like Lindor, like Correa, like Story, like Baez, like those guys. I kind of suspect that there is a real generation of shortstops brewing here. Did I say Correa? I'm going to say Correa as well. I might have said Correa twice. Devin Fitz-Gerald, who is listed as a shortstop on Pipeline, 28th, so he's kind of in that, hey, we just threw you on the list after a couple of guys graduated spot. I suspect he'll move up. Fangraphs has him rated as 8th in the system, so discrepancy there, but one that I suspect will be fixed by Pipeline eventually this year. Now we have a pitcher who, like Devin Fitz-Gerald, has moved up from the complex level to full season A-ball, which is a very encouraging promotion. It's also a very hard jump to make, that jump from rookie ball to full season A-ball. One of the more difficult jumps to make in the minor leagues. But here are the complex level stats for pitchers with 20 innings pitched this year stateside. And if we sort by XFIP here, minimum 20 innings pitched, you see a lot of, here's some 21-year-olds, here's a 23-year-old, here's a 20-year-old. But top of the list is an 18-year-old, Jhonny King, in the Toronto Blue Jays organization with an XFIP below 2, earning him a promotion to full season A-ball. King is a 6'3" lefty in the Blue Jays organization. He was drafted in the 3rd round last year. Signing bonus $1.25 million, so a little bit above slot. They picked him out of high school, obviously, and statistically just dominated the complex level in his pro debut in 2025. 41% strikeout rate, 42% to a 7% walk rate. Earns the promotion of full season A-ball. There are only 2 appearances, 5 innings, so not a lot to glean statistically, but man, just the 1.13 ERA, the ground ball rate was high as well, although there's a lot of ground balls hit at that level to begin with. Guys are still sort of figuring out their swings, figuring out how to get the ball in the air, but a very dominant performance from an 18-year-old stateside earns him the promotion to full season A-ball at a very young age. The Blue Jays in recent years, to their credit, have had a lot of interesting, a lot of really good, a lot of highly touted, highly ranked pitching prospects. The difficulty has been in graduating those prospects into a spot in the starting rotation. That's the thing that hasn't really happened a whole lot for them lately. So we're going to be rooting on Jhonny King, who is ranked 11th in their system. Sticking with the Complex League, which is the lowest level league you'll see in this video, there'll be another Statline scouting in a month or two, and we can go through what's happening in the Dominican this summer. But sticking with the Complex League, looking at pitchers, just sorting by swinging strike rate. That's really all it is. And I think, our statistical needs become simplified the lower down the minor league ladder we go, because at certain points, if there was a guy who could miss bats, get soft contact, and had great command, had great control, he would be pitching at this level, Just show me that you have the ability to miss bats, and then hopefully we can expect other elements of your pitching game to develop. Justin Chambers, at the age of 19, has a 28.5% swinging strike rate, which I guess implies a 58% strikeout rate. So, good for him. I'm sure if he had a 58% strikeout rate in the majors, he would be considered the greatest pitcher of all time. So that's more of an indictment on the quality of hitting there, just as much as the quality of Justin Chambers' pitching. But at age 19, that is still an impressive figure, and it makes me want to dig down just a little bit deeper. Justin Chambers is an interesting one because he was drafted in the 20th round back in 2023. I mean, he was nearly, Mr. Irrelevant in that draft. And he was drafted by the Brewers, yet never actually made his pro debut for them. He made his pro debut for the Dodgers. He was traded by the Brewers not long after he was drafted, so we'll get into that. The signing bonus here is far above slot. So what the Brewers did essentially is probably go cheaper in some of the earlier rounds so they could get a guy like Justin Chambers in the 20th round and give him a bonus high enough to say, hey, don't go to college. Don't try to get more knowledge. Go to Jupiter to get more stupider. That's probably how the conversation went. But anyways, Justin Chambers, to his credit, I mean, 18K per 9 at the Complex League, 44% strikeout rate. Yes, yeah, he's walking a lot of people. Okay, that's fine. We can work with that. If he wasn't walking a lot of people, if he was also like a super pitchability guy for his age, he wouldn't be there. You know what I mean? You got to meet the players where they're at, and I like where Justin Chambers is at. It's definitely a plus for Justin Chambers that he was drafted by the Brewers and then very quickly traded for by the Dodgers. These are two of the better organizations in terms of player development, particularly pitcher development. So in July 2023, he does get drafted by the Brewers in that 20th round, the final round of the draft. And then in January 2024, before he even makes his pro debut, traded for Brian Hudson, who you'll recall in 2024, Brian Hudson was one of the better rookie relievers in the league. So, the Dodgers are sort of hoping that Justin Chambers can develop into an arm of the quality of Brian Hudson, at least to deliver some good seasons in the big leagues. But of course, Justin Chambers has a long way to go. There's a lot of variance, particularly when you get lower and lower into the minor league system. This is a guy who hasn't even made his debut in full season A-ball yet. Here's a look at your top 30 Dodgers prospects, and to just further elucidate the point that I'm making, he's not on there. So he has a long way to go. And then our final prospect will be a complex level hitter. Again, we're sort of just looking for a combination of home runs and steals, right? Things like the walk rate can be inflated depending on how often you swing because there's just a lack of command and control at that level in general. Just give me guys who are going to hit homers and steal bases and just show off a general level of athleticism. And for 5 homers and at least 10 stolen bases as well, there are 6 players who have done it. The youngest is Jhonny Level of the San Francisco Giants. Some notes on Jhonny Level. First and foremost, spelling-wise, this is a situation where the H comes before the O. This is a Peralta-style Jhonny. He was signed in January 2024 out of Venezuela. He is 18 years old, only turned 18 last March. Switch hitting, shortstop. I'll say sort of caveat on that because a lot of prospects are shortstops at his age. That doesn't mean they're going to be, shortstops in the big leagues or anything like that. Not saying he can't be. I'm just saying a lot of players are listed as shortstops until someone tells them, you can't be a shortstop, you'll be this instead. Had a very strong pro debut in 2024. 10 homers, 18 steals, 144 WRC+. This was in the Dominican Summer League. And then he moved stateside to the Complex League already at the age of 18 and is essentially able to repeat the performance, very similar in terms of walk rate and strikeout rate, both good, both times having an OPS above 900, this time a 135 WRC+, hitting for power, stealing bases. It's a really good combination, and there's really not that much you can look at beyond, those simple counting stats at this age, at this level. Pun intended. Level is not exactly the most under-the-radar prospect in the Giants organization. He's listed 4th on their top 30, which I think is the highest organization ranking we've seen among any of the 10 prospects we scouted in this video. Part of it is just the amount of investment. He signed for just shy of $1 million, so he was not exactly, an unknown, completely hidden gem, even when he was an amateur in Venezuela ready to sign his bonus. So very impressive start to his professional career, though. Really good in 2024 and repeating it in 2025. I'm excited to see what he can do as he moves up the ladder. Hopefully at some point we see him in full season A-ball and really get to see what kind of level of prospect this is. Until then, I would say let's just enjoy this video courtesy of my pal Justice De Los Santos. 42-year-old Justin Verlander versus 17-year-old Jhonny Level. This is from earlier in spring training this year. First pitch, there's a swinging strike. How do you think the second pitch goes? Oh, that's a called strike. That is an 0-2 count. Will he finish him off? You have to imagine he will. It's not really a fair matchup, but that hasn't stopped him from succeeding this year. Well, guys, that's it for this episode of Statline Scouting. Thank you for watching, and again, thank you to moomoo for sponsoring this video.